Jacque Elias, welcome to the Marketing for Business podcast.
Hello, happy to be here.
Look, I'm looking forward to this chat. You're the CEO of Futurebound, and like I was reading on your LinkedIn, which is quite impressive, by the way. You help inspiring wealth building homeowners maximize their disposable income and their home equity and passive income, basically to become financially free. I just think that's a great topic. It's a topic that more people should discuss, and I think we're going to have a great chat because of that today. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. I agree with you, but I have to, don't I?
You do. Hey, now I'm picking up an accent. Where are you originally from?
Originally from Phoenix, Arizona. Been
Wow,
in New Zealand for 10 years and a bit now.
nice.
Yeah. So New Zealand's home.
Yeah. And so back in the day though, at university, what were you studying at university, and what led you to want to get into the finance world and help people with their wealth building?
Yeah, it has been a ride. So I actually trained as a speech therapist,
Oh
right?
wow.
Completely different, right?
Yeah.
And so my journey into the financial world wasn't professional, although I use a lot of my profession now because
Hmm.
in being a speech therapist, it's all about learning how to change behavior. In this case, the behavior is speech and language, right?
Nice.
And so I studied how to change behavior and get the result that you want and assess and all of those things. But on the personal side, I was starting life just like most people. I did the right things. I had a career. I had even a graduate degree. So I was making good money
Oh,
and got a mortgage and was got short-term debt and
yeah.
bought brand new cars and we did all
Yeah.
the things
Totally.
that you do thinking that you're living the life and living this rich life. But within those first 5 years, I really started to realize that even though I was looking rich and looking like I was doing well,
Yeah.
I started to feel that inevitable spinning of wheels, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not really going anywhere because all you're doing is trying to live a life that's just trapping you,
Yeah.
you know, in the here
Do
and
you think
now.
do you think that is because we're just not taught another way? We're kind of conditioned to that's how it is. You go to school, you go to university, you get a job, and then all of a sudden you're on this, you're kind of at a high because you've got a job and you have some money in your pocket and you think, oh, I could buy that. And then all of a sudden, oh, I could buy that too. And then all of a sudden you got this credit card and you actually have to pay for it for later. You think it's just quite habitual the way that kind of rolls out and happens because that's pretty much the way everyone's taught, right? It's no, well, there's a group of people that are taught a wee bit differently from their parents, but most people aren't, right? So,
Yeah, look, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but it is to me a fact that the financial industry is not designed for me and you to win.
no,
Right. And so I remember getting a credit card sent to me in the mail at 18 when I was
yeah,
just starting uni. Right. And
yeah,
that was because I had a kid's account,
yeah,
right? The smart thing to do. So I could learn how to use a bank account and those life skills. And obviously, for the bank, that they didn't care about my life skills. They wanted to get me early. So they knew when I turned 18, they can send me a credit card. And I did exactly what they wanted
yeah,
me to do,
totally.
rack it all up, go traveling, had no way to really pay it off.
No,
Right. So the
that's the goal,
earlier
right?
it's the whole system is designed to because that is their model. That's their
Mm,
profitable model is
totally.
to get you in debt as early as possible
Yeah,
and keep you in debt as long as possible. So um, I think that it's having an intentional difference. And actually, for me, the difference came in while I was still in uni. I got a job at J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Do you know that bank? It's a
yeah,
really
totally.
large bank, right?
Mm,
And I was a debt collector,
oh wow.
really for credit cards. And they teach you how credit cards work and all
Yeah,
of these things. That was my big moment of like my innocence left.
yeah. True, right?
I got trapped. I
Yeah,
did everything that they wanted me to do to be, trapped. And that's actually what started this awareness. There was something else going on. I
yeah,
thought I was just living this good life, but there's something else happening in the background. There's more information and knowledge that I do not have
yeah,
just available to me, and I need to be looking somewhere else for that.
yeah. So
Um,
When you started to look at that though, because you started the they pull back the curtain and you're going whoa whoa whoa. How did that make you feel? Like what were you starting to think there? Did you start to feel oh I'm getting cheated? This is the this is like they're cheating on us here. They're actually they're turning us into things that we never wanted to be. But because of they're that good at it, all of a sudden we're deep in debt and really have no thinking of how we could get out of it because a lot of people just aren't taught how to deal with money.
Not at all. I felt like a
Mm.
big sucker,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just felt like I, I just felt like I'm not equipped. Like
mm,
I totally, like I said, my innocence, because I was, like I said, I was like 18, 19,
yeah,
and that was the first time I realized, yeah, so the bank puts like they market themselves as like we have your back and like
yeah,
this
yeah,
is I remember going through a bit later on, I went through like a online, not an online course, but it was a financial course, and um, that whole idea of the bank is not a public service,
yeah,
right? They're profitable
yeah,
companies and billions of dollars. Like I don't even know if it's in trillions. I don't know. They are like the ones who are controlling and deciding how you
yeah.
use your money, basically,
Totally.
right?
I
So.
look at the bank and one thing I worked out, and it's not a bad business model. It's small but often. They get you small but often. And a
Yeah.
lot of times for people, it's just small enough that it doesn't, it's no, that doesn't really matter. But you do it over millions of people and billions of people, and it just adds up to huge amounts of sums. All right. Hey, so let's get technical because our listeners here, some people will be starting to go, you know what? I'm annoyed by that as well. And let's get technical around how does someone, because I read on and obviously, hey, full disclosure, you're a client of ours at Digital Influence, and we do, a bunch of work, and we know how your stuff, and we see your stuff working. How does someone in debt, let's just take credit card for example,
Yeah.
because I know we're going to talk about mortgages, and I know we're going to talk about wealth building, but let's just take credit cards. Let's just say someone listening to this goes, you know what? I've got a credit card and I'm sick of it. How do you actually get out of credit card debt? What's something tactical that you can start doing?
So I want to say there's two kind of main things. So there's one thing to deal with your habits, right? Your
Hmm.
spending habits.
Nice.
And that has to be matched with what people think about, which is like, what is the strategy to actually pay that more
Yep.
loan
Cool.
off, right? And so I'll start with what people are probably thinking about. And so that is, the what I suggest that you do is the debt snowball, right?
Nice.
And so that the reason why I go there for anyone who is like, hey, look, there are other ways, and there are other ways that you actually pay off more interest faster,
Mm.
but it does not match your behavior. So a debt avalanche, you pay off short-term debt in the order of the highest interest
Yep.
down to the lowest. So you're going to be, paying off the most interest early as
Yep.
possible. But the problem is that those debts tend to be quite large,
Yep.
right? And it's going to take you first so long to pay that
Yep.
off.
Yep.
And the problem is that our behaviors, that's why I said there's that other bit,
Mm.
our spending habits and behaviors do not match how fast we want to pay that off. So that means that we do not have the spending behaviors and money habits to be able to take a long time to get a win on paying down our short term debt.
Yep.
So, what I suggest to people is you're going to pay a little bit more interest and use a debt snowball, which means I'm going to start paying off my extra repayment onto the smallest balance first. Okay.
Nice.
Get that quick win. You
Yeah.
pay off $500, $1,000, and you go, I'm a debt paying
Yeah.
master,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I can
Totally.
do it. And that gives you that win that
Yeah.
you need to then give you that celebration of like, okay, now I can keep doing this
Yeah.
behavior because there's a benefit here, right?
And
So,
seriously, having gone through this myself, this is the
Mhm.
best way to do it. And I probably went through this maybe 15 years ago. And it works, right? So you get that because a lot of people, you want to be recognized for your efforts.
Yeah.
And when you're going through this, it can be really painful. to have to put that extra bit of money somewhere. But all of a sudden that extra bit of money adds up to something, and then all of a sudden you've got that $500 debt is gone, and now it's like, wow,
Yeah.
this thing works, and then you get the next one, and that's
That's
this the
right.
snowball that Jackie was talking about. It starts to compound. The snowball starts to go down the hill and get bigger and bigger. It's having gone through this, I know that this works, and it's quite an exciting way to get out of debt.
It is. And that's exactly how I got out of short-term debt, right? Doing
Yeah.
the exact same thing. And when you've had short-term debt, like I said, I got into credit card debt when I was 18, and it wasn't until my early 30s when I paid off the same credit card. Now, it was probably not the same actual dollars in debt, right? But you
Yeah.
keep putting stuff on, and you pay
Oh, yeah.
some down, and you put some on, right? So long. It was like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
I can be a different person. It
Yeah.
sounds weird, but it just like was like for me, I just felt like, oh my, I can do anything. Like your
Yeah.
confidence in yourself
Totally.
and what you're able to do, because it's not talked about a lot, but when you feel like you cannot handle your finances or get yourself out of that cycle, it really does
Yeah.
cut down your own self-confidence of what you can
Yeah.
achieve in life, right?
I,
And
I,
so
I do
that
agree.
really is a boost there when
Yeah.
you can pay that off.
No, I used to this will hit with a number of people that if you are in debt, like I never used to open the Visa bill. I never used to open it, and I remember becoming, paying that credit card off and all that sort of stuff. And I remember cleaning out the garage, and I remember there was all these old bills that I never opened, but I just chucked them in this in this thing, right? And now obviously you don't have a credit card and mortgage free and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
which is amazing. But man, it took me back. It took me back to that there was real pain there, so much pain that I could not. I just know I knew the results. So I didn't want to open them. I didn't want them to tell me in that statement how much in debt I was, because man, I was not getting ahead with it. It was real. It was real. And I think for a lot of people, and it must be the people that you deal with as well. Do they come to a point of a kind of like hopelessness and like, man, I just don't know what to do. Like, where are
Yeah.
people at?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that a lot. I don't know what to do. Some people who have, looked into a little bit more, I'll hear things like, I know I overspend. I know, like they've gone a little step further to go, I know this, but they still don't feel like they have the tools
Yeah,
to address what those behaviors are, right?
yeah,
Like I can see that what I'm doing is not getting me where I want to go,
yeah,
but I do not know how to address it. Like
yeah,
that's why they're coming to be like,
yeah.
help,
No.
you know?
Yeah, so in that sort of case, how do you help people? What's the framework for that to help those people? Because it
It's
really is, and kudos to you, because finance is it's probably one of the most emotional things people have to deal with in their life.
yeah,
For a lot of people, there's a lack of money, and it's a very emotional topic, and I think it's a topic that, hey, if you actually get some systems in place and some frameworks in place, most people can take charge of I believe,
absolutely.
charge of their money. And I'm living proof of it. And I wasn't brought up in a rich family at all. But I'm
Right.
just living proof. And I know I've met other people that are. If you start to get the right tools and have the right advice, you really can make this thing work for you.
Absolutely. To answer your question, I'll start it as like probably the most powerful, which is the least practical, which is getting people motivated around a goal.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Helping them to see what I say, what I do at the end of the day is I help people to define what their future is. What is my dream lifestyle? Where am I trying to go? Because otherwise I can't tell you anything. I can't give you any guidance as to what to do unless you know which direction you're going, right?
So true.
So define your destination and then basically get motivated, and then I help them structure their now to get them to tomorrow, right?
Nice.
So to
Okay.
structure your finances, structure your behaviors, and a lot of times the changes that people are making, it's not because I'm telling them they need to make those changes. I'm saying, hey, look, if this is your destination, what now is reasonable to you?
Yeah.
Like what now do you want to do?
Yeah.
when we start looking at, for example, like a spending plan.
Okay.
So we use spending plans, not budgets, because
Nice.
spending plans actually focus you on the goal. So if the goal is, I want to pay off my credit cards or have pay 10,000. Some of our clients, one of our clients paid $53,000, no raise, no pay raise or anything, $53,000 on their mortgage in 1 year, which shaved off about 3 years in one go, right?
Very
So
good.
whatever your goal is, like what am I trying to do?
Yeah.
Have that spending plan that actually takes you there. And once you can see that, it really is super motivating to
Yeah.
make those adjustments, to cut back on eating out, to, switch up your power bill or whatever practical
Yeah.
changes that means that you have to do. It becomes not so difficult to make those behavior changes or spending changes because now I'm motivated about the goal.
And this is like when you think about goal setting and helping people with the goals, do people really know what they want though? When you ask them about a goal, do you have to really prompt them?
Not at all.
Or do you go and say, hey, well, what is it that you don't want? Because, I'll ask people all the time, hey, what's your goal? What are you working on? What are you trying to get to?
Yeah.
And most people are like, oh, I'm not really sure. So I'm sure people coming to you, they want the outcome of being, debt free and all that type of stuff. But when you start to focus them on a goal, what do most people say to you, and how do you then rephrase that and get them on track?
Yeah, it's a really good question because the answer is absolutely not. Most people are can't see the forest for the trees, right? With their
Yeah,
finances, they're so focused on what they're worried about, what's
yeah,
stressing them, all of those things. What's right here, they cannot even. I do an exercise where we talk. I ask them, hey, look, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if nothing changed, what would happen? And then, so many people, they maybe can tell me in 1 year.
yeah,
5 years for some people is like, it's an abyss. And 10 years, they're like, don't even,
yeah,
I can't even think that far. So what I do is, I actually just go beneath the now, right? The iceberg, whatever's on top.
hmm,
And I ask a series of why questions to help them dig down and say, okay, so what's important? And the stuff that comes out, I try not to cry all the time
yeah,
because the stuff that comes out, our whys are just so in our guts, It's
yeah,
about one now client told me, you know what? I want my wife to be right here, to be sitting right here. I don't want her to have
nice,
to go out to work. I don't want to be here on the weekends and she's having to go work and,
mm,
clean and stuff. I want her right here with me.
yeah,
And simple stuff like that is enough to go, okay, what do we need to do then
yeah.
to have your wife be home with you and not have to work so many hours,
Yeah,
right?
but that's the thing is that's why I think it's so important that people get help with this stuff because, and like you're going to dig a deep and ask why, and yes, it can be uncomfortable, but here's the thing. I know from experience if you can go deep with people and you can find out the real why. Because I tell you what, someone coming in and saying I want to pay my credit card off versus someone coming in and saying, hey, you know what? With a bit of digging, actually, what I really want is I want to actually have my wife beside me. Who's going to be more motivated? Like the guy loves his wife versus just paying off the credit card. Like he's going to work.
Absolutely.
They're going to work harder together in a common goal as well. And I think that's why it's so important. If you really want to get out of debt, you actually have to get someone to help you because they're going to dig into your bigger why, and that's where you really need to go. It's so good, and I think it's one of those things people gloss over, and I think that's why I wanted to capture it. Is goal setting. It must cut deep. You must. For me personally,
Yeah.
happy to share this. It was my son. When we had our son, I wanted to change the cycle of our family when it come to generational wealth, etc.
Mm,
And I didn't. I wanted him. I grew up in a family where money didn't grow on trees. Like
yeah.
what do you think I am? Do I look like money? Like all that sort of stuff.
Mm,
All those kind of negative to things would come up, and it was a loving. Mum and dad split up, but my mum did everything to help us and grow our two boys up. But there was quite of a lack of money, so we weren't told these certain things. And when I started to I started to look at things and well, what am I going to do? Where's my why? And I looked at my
Yeah.
son and go, well, he can either have the same upbringing that I had, was very lacking stuff, and or I can change it. But I have to change myself first, right? And
Yeah.
that's where I dug deep and go, okay, the why is our family, and that really allowed me to then change my habits, just like you said. Don't spend. You don't need that. We weren't. We would. Our biggest problem at the time was we'd go and spend money on holidays,
Yeah.
and they were holidays that we couldn't afford. We could afford them because we had a credit card, but
That's
we couldn't
right.
afford them. And now we go on holidays and everything's paid for in advance with cash.
Yeah.
So completely. But that was the why that really drove that. So I'm glad to hear that you go deep with people on that, because it's the thing that makes the difference.
Absolutely. And it happens in the first 30-minute call when I
Yeah.
first meet people and they go, "Oh gosh, I didn't expect to have
Yeah. Yeah. How good.
to have
That's it.
such a deep conversation
Yeah.
so soon,"
You got
because
to
it
move
really
people, right?
everything we do is comes from
Yeah.
that place.
Yeah, because then you'll know, like if their why's big enough, they're going to do the hard stuff to get the result. Because you must know as well, getting people out of debt and creating wealth is not actually easy. You know,
I
it,
was
it,
gonna say that because I almost can tell you exactly who um, either won't join or will join and will leave early, leave
yeah,
our program early. Because in that first 30 minutes, when I'm asking, well, why is that? Well, if they stay surface,
yeah,
then I know they are not tapping into what's
yeah,
really important enough
yeah,
for us for to last through the hard times,
yeah.
because it's not just a series of watch a video and fill
No,
out a few forms, like it gets in your business.
well, the
you
rubber
know
meets the road when you're not there, right? And something
yeah.
comes up and you need to pay for it, or you see something in a shop and go, "Oh, that old habit." You just buy it, right? Oh, my friends, we're going to Auckland. Oh, come with us. Next minute and that's hard when you have to turn that stuff away. And yeah, so yeah, the people with the big why, and I think that's why it's really important to speak to someone who's a professional. Hey, you made an interesting point. You talk about spending plans versus budgets.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that, because I have budgets in the business, but I'm not a massive fan of having a budget at home.
Yeah. Um, we all know what the problems with budgets are.
Yeah,
Budgets at home for your personal life, it just is a drag. It's no fun. You have to track your money.
yeah,
It's hard to stay on top of it. And in theory, it would be perfect. But the problem with budgets is that it looks at how much money I have today. If I have $1,000 in the bank, I can make a budget as to where does that money go. However, it literally keeps you in a cycle because you
mm,
only plan out how much money you have today, right? A spending plan says the money that I'm going to get in the future, marry that with the goal that I have. How do I spend the money I'm going to get in the future to get me to that goal?
yeah,
Okay. So that is what actually changes and grows your financial position. So right when we go, I feel like I'm not moving forward.
yeah,
We don't actually really know what the mechanics of moving our finances forward means, right?
yeah,
As to what do I do in the day to day in life
yeah, yeah,
to do that. And that's what a spending plan does. It kind of just, you kind of sit into this process that we've created where you have, you just decide, all right, of my income that I'm going to have, and we actually have take people through a process to plan their whole year of spending in advance,
oh wow,
right? And so you have, okay, I'm going to get this much income. All right, so how much of that are my needs? How much of that are my wants? How much is the savings and the investing part of it? And then the giving, right? Because strongly believe to have giving as part of what you do so you can stay focused on contributing and how,
yeah, yeah,
and the fulfillment in life. Because as soon as you start wealth building, we see it all the time. People start focusing on, ooh, that feels good. Let's go for
yeah,
money, right?
yeah,
So we
yeah,
keep the giving there. But when you can understand the function of my finances, I need to live, I need some, the needs, and then the wants, which is the fun, because that's important too, because I
yeah,
have to have fun while I'm doing this, right? And then savings and slash investment top ups and stuff that grows my position. And then the giving, that's my passion, fulfillment, contribution. having all of those part of your money, you can sit back and feel at peace now.
Mm.
My needs are met.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
having fun. I'm growing my position,
yeah,
and I'm contributing and giving to causes I really
yeah.
believe in.
So
There's
good.
nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. How quickly can someone get out of debt, you think? What's reasonable with people to that someone who comes in your door, has a big enough why, and goes, you know what, I'm sick of this. I just actually want to be out of debt. Because once you're out of debt, like we're going to talk about this in the next part, like you can actually do a lot of stuff and create
Right, yeah.
really financial freedom for yourself and your family once. But how long does it generally take someone to get out of debt?
So if you're talking short-term debt, it might, be uh, a year or less to maybe 5, depending on their
Yeah,
whole situation is. But if it's longer than 18 months when we do the looking around, and depending on the size of the short-term debt, we usually do not go to debt console into your mortgage,
yeah,
usually because that's solving a debt problem with debt. But for
yeah,
some people, they need that wiggle room first. But when we're adding on to the mortgage of that, so our average um, would be 11 years.
yeah,
Okay. So if you're looking at, of all the plans that we worked out with people, how long is it until they're mortgage free? The average is
wow,
11 years. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And then in reality, that's like a projection, right?
Yeah,
In reality, people tend to be mortgage free a year to 2 years earlier than what it says on our
yeah,
projection,
yeah,
because of the things I was telling you about.
yeah.
Like when you get motivated, you can see it start happening. You're
Oh,
paying off stuff, and you're like, "Oh my God, this works!"
yeah,
You
yeah,
just go crazy, you go bonkers, and people go into maximize mode, what I call it. And they just go, well, what else can I do? Do I side hustles or what Airbnb? What else can I do to
yeah,
like smash down this debt? Because they can
yeah,
see it's working, and it just starts to
yeah,
snowball,
yeah.
for them as well.
Yeah, I look, I know personally, when you start to see that you can actually pay this thing off. Hey, you really do get it. I personally got excited, and I remember sending my wife the day we had no mortgage, and I sent her a screenshot of our bank accounts, and I said, "What's different in here?" And she goes, "Oh my God, we've done it!" Like, and it's
Yeah.
such a good thing to be able to do, and so okay, 11 years to be debt free. Some people were thinking, "Oh, what's the catch?" Because like people in finances can be very, very skeptical. So let's talk about, because you actually have a plan around this, and you've got a lot of resources out there that
Yeah.
can actually help people. So
Yeah.
people have, they've got their finances under control. How do you actually help people become mortgage free? 7 to 10 years. Like for a lot of people, they'll be thinking, "Oh, that would be a dream." What's the process that you guys go through?
Yeah, so we have a three-step process, which we call the Freedom Blueprint. The first step is all about maximizing your disposable income. All right, so
Okay.
first, some for people finding it, what
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
have,
Yeah,
and then giving it a job. Okay, so
nice.
that's where we look at what are your values, right? Putting it into a spending plan, making sure that you know how you're spending your money, your spending habits, and that's what I was talking about, your needs, wants, savings, and giving. Making sure that you have a full spending plan and you
Mm,
love the life that you're living. It's very important, that aspect.
yeah,
It's because a lot of people go, I have to pay down my mortgage fast, then I need to eat beans on toast forever, like
yeah,
just
yeah,
peel
sure.
back all the expenses. We actually don't do that. We say,
Mm,
no, you need to enjoy your life so you can continue to pay off your mortgage and short term debt fast over time. Because again,
yeah,
7 to 10 years, that's
yeah.
still a while,
It's a
right?
while, right? Mm,
So create this life that you love in your spending plan. Then you're going to automate it by putting it into account buckets. Okay.
love
So
it.
we have an account bucket system that then now it's practical. It's off of paper. It is in your bank accounts, and you just live out of those bank accounts, right? So,
Cool.
very similar if you've heard of profit first type of bank
Yeah,
balance accounting type of way, so then you
yeah,
don't have to track your money. Anyone can do it because there's no budgeting. Even if you've never budgeted, if you don't track, you don't have to worry about that. Just set up those bank accounts based on your spending plan and live out of that. Now I have a percentage. So we say put 100%. This is kind of the standard. 100% of your desired lifestyle into 80% of your income. That gives you that 20% Okay, now that you've done that, you're ready for step two, which is to take that 20%, which we call a seed capital. That is the amount of money that is earmarked to grow your position, pay down debts, acquire assets, right? So you can take that now because you're feeling good, you're loving your life. You can easily take that and put that on your mortgage each year. Okay.
Nice.
And so now that you have this system working for you, like I said, you can sit back, you're at peace, you're moving, you're making moves, you're growing your financial position, you're growing your net worth, right? By paying down debts. And at a certain point, because you're building equity quite quickly, now you've created a new asset, right? Your equity in your home.
Hmm.
And so many times you can now use that equity to then invest in property before you pay off your mortgage, your family home mortgage, right?
Nice.
So using that ability to grow your position from just the here and now into building wealth within your mortgage, using equity, leverage that off, and then now you have the ability to create passive income in step three, which is maximize your passive income with different properties, paying down. You're like a mortgage master, where we call it a mortgage game changer at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Because now I'm not afraid to get a mortgage on my investment property because I know how to pay it down, get
Totally.
it neutral, and then the tenant does the rest and is paying you an income.
So good, so good. Hey, so one thing I heard in there was the use of accounts and buckets, right? What I did here is they're tools, right? So they're tools to really help people take the emotions out of money. Talk to me a wee bit more about that and how you set them up, because I think I know from my experience doing this. You mentioned Mike McCallowitz. I've used Profit First inside my business. I use a similar bucket system to become financially free. Because I think money is very emotional, but it's also a tool. So if you use it as a tool and you tell it where to go and when to go,
Yeah.
you can actually buy back the system, and you can take advantage of it. So talk to me a wee bit more about that, because I don't want people to leave this going, what were those buckets? What was that about? Because this is the way to do it, right?
Absolutely. It works best with how we work as humans. If you've,
Yeah.
if you've read Profit First or anything from Mike McCallowitz. And so absolutely. So um, it basically, there are six types of kind of main types of bank accounts, and it's more around how the money functions in those accounts.
Nice.
Okay. So for example, you just might have your income account and your bills, right? The
Yep.
bills just kind of get paid out. So that's the easiest. And most people have that kind of bank account. Income comes in, bills get automatically paid out. Then you might have a periodic spending, right? And so this is where it starts to become there are categories of spending that people have, they just don't know they have,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure, right.
Uh, so, the things that come up periodically that you go, ah, the rates, or WAF, or, you go emergency,
Mm.
it's actually not an emergency. It's something that you knew you were having, but you just didn't plan, right?
Yeah.
If you have, for example, appliances break or your car needs to be repaired or anything like that, you can plan ahead for those things. They are not emergencies, right? You can probably think you're going to have those expenses, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you just look back to see what was going on.
And I
Um,
guess what you're doing here is like, so when this does happen, because life does happen, right? You're not going to debt to solve this issue. You're going to
Absolutely.
the bucket to solve the issue, which is the tool to actually keep the ball going and keep everything focused, because the money is there for when you need it. Yeah, I like it.
100%. And remember, your seed capital, that 20% is still over here. Well,
Mm.
now I can dip into my, like, just the other day, we had a appliance break and we had to get our oven fixed, right? We had money sitting there just waiting for that. I didn't have to dip into my emergency fund. I didn't have to
Yeah.
dip into any money that I was, you know, putting onto, well, our investment properties now. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to, you just keep going. Absolutely. And so those different types of bank accounts, I have one called big purchases. So basically I'm saving up to purchase something that might be like a holiday or a car, right? People buy cars with cash in our
Mm.
membership, right?
Mhm.
Because you're saving
Cool.
up over time.
Yeah.
Um, and TVs and all those things. You just save up over time. So now it becomes all of my money has a function. I know clearly how much I have in a bank account that is for what I can just spend on for whatever. You have your everyday spending accounts, which is like your grocery shopping and,
Mm.
your petrol and those types of things. And so you're really pretty much set to where you have your different bank accounts. Now, if you ask me how many, right? Take a guess how many bank account buckets we use. I'm curious.
So out of the six, or
So there's 6 different types, but how
oh,
many bank accounts do you actually have?
mm, uh, three?
No. So we actually have the minimum when people start using the bank account system, it's usually from 10 to 15 that they start with,
Oh
right?
wow,
But some people end up with like 20 something,
really?
25, 22. Yeah. And it's because we do things like I am a stepmom, right?
Mhm.
So we're a blended family, and so we have kids expenses, and then we have some of these accounts
Gotcha.
are amounts that go half and half with these expenses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
these ones, and we have a daughter together, so these expenses are for we're fully paying these expenses, right?
Got it.
So you have different accounts for your life, and that fits what works for your life, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense,
yeah,
right?
totally.
So anytime you kind of like Mike McCallowit says, anytime you're wanting to kind of pull something out or save for something, you add another bank account. Like we had a pet. Our pet is no longer with us,
Mm.
but we got a new dog a few years ago, and previously our dog Chase passed away, and so the expenses for what we were paying for Chase's food and all this stuff was in our supermarket bill, and I was trying to make a plan, right, for
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
got the new dog. How much is this going to cost? And I couldn't figure it out. So I just started a new bank account, which was pet,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then
That
I could
makes sense.
see clearly what we were spending and how much that was, right? So
No,
it becomes a easy way. So that's kind of how you end up with like 20 bank accounts. Um,
but
yeah.
I can see how it can how that works, right? Because like rather than it's very okay if you're saving for this, have that account for that. Like it does make sense. And then once
Yeah.
again, you're controlling the money. The money's going where you're putting it. And that does work. So yeah, I like it. And I guess opening up bank accounts these days, it doesn't cost you anything to open up a bank account. So yeah,
No.
that's very very clever. Okay, so when you as a let's put a lens on a wee bit as a business owner now, because you've got you're growing this business and you're helping people. What are some of the stories that you start to hear that really make you realize you're doing the right thing? Like, tell me about some of the success stories that you've had, helping people here.
Yeah, it's actually pretty I was actually talking to Liv Brand, who's on your team, and I was saying
Nice.
it sounds so ridiculous. I feel like when I say this, it sounds way too good to be true. So it is extremely life changing for people
Mm,
to make some of the small changes. Some of the things that we see that happens quite often are seem small but are
mm.
huge. For example, many people manage their money within a couple separately, right? And
Yeah,
so,
totally.
yeah, I was actually very shocked by it. Like
Yeah,
I didn't know how often it was
yeah,
happening, right? Until we started doing the financial coaching and kind of lifting the lid off of people's
yeah.
finances. And I was like, wow, okay. And
I'd say that's generational as well, though. People are taught that from their parents, from their parents, from their parents. Like that. So
likely, right? And
yeah,
and and it also, anyway, we won't go into,
yeah,
kind of is if like you're older and maybe you had a life before, and then
yeah,
you're coming into a new relationship. So there are some legitimate reasons why people
yeah.
do this, but one of the things that it hurts is your ability to move forward unified, right? And
Mm,
so it what happens is when people come into our program, one of the very first things we have them do is to understand their money personalities, understand their partner's money personality, and then make a rule of engagement on how are we going to manage this life of ours with our finances together. And that's kind of looking at, like, what's, because they evaluate with money personalities, what's helping, what's hurting, right? And so then we go, okay, well, my spending habits, maybe I'm a spender and I can see how that's hurting, but it is bringing me joy. So how can we, balance that out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they kind of make some rules of engagement. So as they go through the program, they're actually coming together and closer into what I call financial harmony. And so those stories of people, like, all of a sudden we'll be on a coaching call for weeks and weeks, and there's just one person there, and all of a sudden, oh hi, who's that in the background? The partner's coming and they're talking and they're having their money dates,
Nice.
which we encourage people to do, and to
Oh,
have
good.
those conversations around money. And that's actually really life changing.
Totally.
People paying off. We just had did some case studies, and one of our clients, amazing, got really excited, paid down $90,000 of interest off of their mortgage in the first year of us working with them. They also paid for a wedding and a honeymoon in cash,
Wow.
and they paid off a short-term debt and started saving for their emergency fund.
Yeah.
All of that in 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't because there was this huge pay rise or because of a huge windfall. It was because they got their spending plan, right? Gave all
Yeah.
their every dollar a job, and they, just kind of put that plan in place, and went ahead and did it. It's
I,
amazing.
I think that's like seriously so good to hear that. I love the bit about the money personalities, and I do want to talk about that. But I just wanted to capture this that you said there. Because people would listen to that, 90,000, and then cash for a wedding, and this, and go, oh well, they must be on a high income and all that sort of stuff. But once again, I'm glad you said that it wasn't, because once again, I think that's why you need to be around other people who are doing this, are seeing it on a day to day basis, because it could just be about being more resourceful, and you
Absolutely.
could be doing something with your money that's just working against you, and you don't even know it. And then you have someone who's a professional at this sort of stuff, comes in, looks at it with different eyes, and all of a sudden, and sparks something inside you, and all of a sudden you start to behave a different way. And the reality is, if you'd woken up, you could have behaved that way before, but you weren't. So you needed someone to come in and help you to spark that interest. So don't just cancel if you're hearing it. Oh, that's okay for them. I want to challenge the listener to say that you can actually do this as well. You actually
So
have, inside you. If you just get the right people around you, you can make this happen.
you're so right. You're so right, which is why it's so important. Not everybody cares that much about our community that we have when they come in, but it
Mm.
is the way that they hear those stories.
Yeah.
When somebody's sharing a win, when somebody, they get to, we all know, that who you're around, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need to
So
be
true.
around people that are helping you to think higher, and go for bigger goals and all those things. We know that as business owners. But in our personal lives, I think, because sometimes we get a bit of a chip on our shoulder about,
Yeah.
like, somebody telling me what to do with our personal
Yeah.
finances.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it is um, a lot of times wasted wealth,
Yeah.
in our hands. And so, just like you would, we've had numerous business owners go, I just don't see how I can have my business, like what you said in the beginning. My business is sorted and I do fine there, but when it comes to my personal
Yeah.
finances, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have an accountant looking over your shoulder, and you don't have, you have almost zero accountability other than the fact that, you and your kids need to eat.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's a huge range of
Well,
fudgeability there.
and also, you have this thing called a mortgage, and it's quite daunting. Like, you look at it as a sum, and I've spoken to people, and just talked to them about their mortgage and stuff, and like, oh well, we'd never pay it off, and like, so all of a sudden, like, you're not giving the opportunity of that. Well, actually, you could, but you just because it's that overwhelming, right? And it's like, oh well, we're paying whatever we're paying every week, and that's what we do. No one
Yeah.
actually had, or they hadn't actually thought, well, actually, if because I think it comes down to the why. Like if you want to become, you've got to take some action, and you've got to have those thoughts, right? And then you've got to do something about it. And I think that's the that is the game changer too. And I guess it's not for everyone. And I guess that's a point that I was trying to make there. It's not for everyone, but if it is for you, then get some help with it, because you can actually blow it out of the gate when you get some help and you get motivated for it, right? And it's this exciting part. Like when you don't have a mortgage, trust me, it's good. Like it's kind of crazy. Um,
Absolutely. What I tell
but
people is look at if you, let's just say it was 11 years, which is our average, right? If you
mm,
take your, what you're paying on your mortgage right now and multiply that in the year, right? And you multiply, take 11 years off what you have on your mortgage right now, and then multiply that by what's left. So if you had 20 years left on your mortgage, and let's say you could shave off 9 years, right? Take that, multiply that by
yeah,
how much you pay on your mortgage every year.
yeah,
And
something
that
like
is
that.
literally what we do every day and help everyday Kiwis. There was one of our clients, I have to tell you this one. I
Nice.
just love this story. A woman from Gisborne, she's a nurse, and she had $74,000 was her take home, right? And so not flash income, right? Single woman. And she got her mortgage, I believe it was 52. Anyway, she would have been mortgage free at 88, right?
Yeah,
Right? Paying it the regular way, paying it the
yeah,
bank's way. And we worked with her. She couldn't work extra. We basically just gave her the spending plan. She had, she kind of eked out only 10% instead of that 20% I said that she could pay that seed capital to pay on her mortgage. And even that, just that, right? $7,400 a year onto her
mm,
mortgage extra would have brought down her mortgage from being mortgage free at 88 to 61, right?
nice.
Yeah. So game changer for her, but she got super excited. Instead of saving 7,400 for 1 year, she actually saved 11,700 in one
Brilliant
year, right? On the same income,
income.
right? And
Nice.
so it's really what I say is we can never quantify the human spirit. We
Yeah,
can never put on a chart for you or a
yeah,
graph what you can do when you get excited
yeah.
and motivated, and you, like you said, be motivated really by what is super important to you. Um, and you really can do what was impossible. It's actually possible.
So true, and it's good to have those case studies of that. I love what you said there. You can you the bank has it. The bank wants it their way, and I love that you're taking your clients and having it, the other way, because the bank's way is not good for you. I remember doing probably when I had my first business, I did a big property seminar for I was the marketing guy behind it, and we had it. It was called Beat the Banks. And it was really, really successful. So much so that the guys in charge got called up by their banks and were saying, "Hey, we're hearing a lot about this beat the banks. What are you guys doing? Well, like just remember who's giving you money for
That's
them
right.
for their investments." But I love it. We're beating the banks. It's the bank's way. But you're taking that power back. It's very, very cool. I love hearing success stories like that. That's so awesome. And like that lady, her life's going to change,
Yeah,
and she's in control of it.
absolutely.
You're the light that's being shined on her, which is fantastic. Tell me a little bit about, like, 'cause I find it interesting with money personalities. Like I think that's a really interesting one for us to go to, because humans, we're so different. I know me and my wife were different at the time, and we had to look at the way we spend, and the way we communicate. We brought up in a family, both brought up in families that didn't really communicate about money. We got very, very clear on our goals, and very, very clear on how we spend money, and we got taught how to have buckets and that sort of stuff for money and for splurge and all that type of stuff. And it was a really game changer once we understood each other. So talk to me a wee bit about that, because I think that's a conversation, once again, you should have with a professional, and actually have that conversation, because I think it's a thing, you know if you're a partner, engaged, married, whatever it is, you should be communicating about money. If you want money to work for you, you need to talk about it. And
Yeah.
I know from our parents that they didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point, Scott. You have to talk about money if you
Yeah.
want it to work for
It
you.
can't be taboo.
There,
Like the
no,
subject cannot be taboo.
absolutely. There is absolutely zero chance of you
Yeah.
hitting any type of goal
And I can
if
tell
you don't
you,
talk about it.
if my wife's father comes around and we start talking about money, he walks out of the room.
Really?
Yeah, and because like it just brings up too much stuff for him, right?
Yeah. I was
And
gonna say that some people, it actually triggers a kind of traumatic
yeah,
response. So what I'm about to say, just be aware that, as you said earlier, our money really does touch every aspect of our lives,
oh,
and it's
oh,
deeply emotional and deeply personal, right? And we all have our own money story and why we respond or have certain behaviors or certain thoughts or beliefs around money. Okay.
mm,
And I know it can be frustrating. I'm talking to you who
mm.
have a partner that their behaviors around money is super frustrating, right? And you want to just go, just do this and it'll be fine. But understanding that someone's money personality is made up of their experiences with their parents around money, whether they, like you
Yeah,
said, talked about money or not, and what kind of messages they received around money. Growing up, it's typically around, as they're growing up. And so it's really important to take that into consideration. And also, everybody's money personality has something that's helpful and something that's hurtful. So, for
mm,
example,
mm,
spender, the whole quintessential spenders, they kind of get a bad rap, like,
yeah,
oh, you're a spender. Um, and actually, some people can take a page out of a spender's book to enjoy spending their money. Because there are some people who are so anxious around spending that they do not want to spend anything. You get money avoiders, which is another personality who really, and maybe your father-in-law, who
mm. Oh,
avoid
totally. Yeah,
money at all costs,
yeah,
right? And there's different reasons, but one could be because it was always bad. Like there's
mm,
always an argument,
yeah,
I don't want to do that. Um, and so spenders also obviously they have that shadow side, which is overspending, right?
yeah,
And but then you get money hoarders, which is your typical saver personality, right? I know where my money's going. They're usually the one who is doing the budgeting aspect in the household, and they are happy to save. But letting it go can be difficult. And so when it comes to okay, we're talking about um, uh, growing wealth and acquiring assets, hoarders are like, no. When you pay that lump sum payment on your mortgage, they're like,
yeah,
oh, no, but I've saved it. It looks so
yeah,
good at
yeah.
the account.
I'll let that go.
It's like, well, that's not what it's for, And so, yes, saving and having being a hoarder is positive, but also you have to watch, that maybe, you don't want to spend it or
Yeah,
give it because of that. Then you have the amassers, which a lot of us business owners might be, because those are the ones that are like, I'm happy to, use money as a tool to pay for things, to invest, but the money has to be coming and going, and there has to be enough money sitting here for me to
yeah,
feel okay.
yeah.
Right. So the bank balance has to be at a certain amount for me to spend money or invest and all of that. But as soon as it starts to go down, I'm getting real nervous. Right.
Mm.
And so I want to be able to be doing lots of things to amass more
So,
money.
so how do you figure out your personality? You do a test? You do whatever? What do you do?
Yeah, there is a quiz. There's a quiz online. We usually just basically talk to people around. These are
Nice.
the money personalities. These are some ways that you kind of know that you are. Many people off the bat will be able to go, "Yep, I'm definitely this."
Just ask
Like
your partner.
yeah, exactly, right? You also have money monks, which is interesting because I was a
Mm,
little bit of a money monk
okay.
for a while, and that's someone who believes that money maybe believes that money is like evil, right? Like that
Mm,
that if you care about money, that must be mean that you're greedy. That type
yeah,
of
yeah,
those false beliefs around money. And so it's very difficult for you to look at growing wealth or managing money because then you feel like, oh, there's something inherently, immoral around me focusing on my
Yeah.
money,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it can be difficult. But money monks are very happy to give, right? To give money to
Yeah.
causes
True.
and to, very altruistic in that way, especially when that is balanced out.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of, I'm sure, listeners are hearing, oh yeah, I have a little bit of that
Yeah.
and a little bit of this.
Totally.
Yeah.
I definitely was a spender, and I went through something, and I don't mind sharing, and I've shared with a few people now, but I decided like I was getting frustrated because money would come very easy to me, but I would spend it, and that's part of the reason I was getting into debt, right? And so I wanted to go through. I kept hitting an income ceiling, and it was really really frustrating. So I went and did emotional freedom tapping, which is EFT.
Yep.
It was a real interesting for probably about 6 weeks in. I had this breakthrough, and it was that when I was growing up, my granddad was very successful. He had two farms, but he one day he must have hit his head and had an accident at the farm, and he never really recovered. So he'd come in and we'd go there for school holidays, and he'd come in from the farm, and he might have been at the pub, and he might have won some money, and he'd come in. I always remember he'd always give me money. Like if he had like coins and notes, he'd just put them on the thing and go, "There you go, grandson," and give me all this money.
Yeah.
And I always remember my uncle would come in, and obviously his son, and he would get no money.
Wow.
And I would get the money, and so my uncle started calling me a weasel. And I never really thought anything of it. Like he's calling me weasel. I was like, oh,
Mm.
whatever. Daddy's give me the money. I'm pretty happy, But what I realized is I had obviously when I was younger, and this old belief was in there that I equated having money years later, that I was a weasel if I got money too easily. So when I started getting into business and I'd add value to people, and some people were paying me some pretty significant money, that it just came too easy. So I just wanted to get rid of it because I didn't want to be seen as a weasel. Now, I didn't know this, but
Mm.
this was playing on in my brain,
Yeah.
or in my old belief. And it wasn't until I did a freedom tapping that came out, and it was a massive, massive breakthrough for me. Because then I realized, well, actually, I'm not a weasel, and I know how to make money, so now I can just control it better and not just go out and spend it. And my I changed my belief on that, and it was pretty amazing to actually go through that. And it made me realize, when you see people having money issues, sometimes it could be that it's ingrained, and it's an old belief. It's just that's there, that's not serving you. But unless you do something about it, it'll always be there. So yeah,
Absolutely. Which
pretty
is
crazy.
why I encourage our clients to dig a bit deeper. Like
Yeah,
if you notice that, hey, look, I have now unearthed some things, and I think
mm,
I need, to get a little bit more help, to get some counseling, to get,
yeah,
these different type of modalities now are around. We have Michelle who works with us. She's a rapid transformational therapist, and
nice.
so yeah,
Yeah,
so there's different things that you can do to really unlock that unconscious, what's
yeah,
going on, in your unconscious brain, that you can get some breakthrough, to help you get past some of these things. And then it honestly just seems like, oh, well, it's real easy to change now,
yeah. Oh,
now that I have unlocked what is going on here.
for me it was, and that's why I put to bring it up. And as I mention all the time to people, like, don't be afraid of it, and don't think it's just woo woo or anything like that. Like, there is actually some things sometimes that you need to go a wee bit deeper on. The crazy part about it is because, and this is what we talked about at the start, because money is so emotional to so many different people, there'll be things that people have said to you about money that's affecting you today that you don't even know. Because emotional, like when pressure comes on, especially around money, a lot of people, they fight, they flight, or they freeze, right?
That's
And a
right.
lot of people will fight, and they fight with their words, and they might not indirectly mean it, but they've said it, and then sometimes that just gets absorbed. And because you're at that kind of flight or fright stage as well, man, you really start to you can take it on, especially when you're young.
Yeah,
So it's pretty. You shouldn't have to do this alone,
absolutely.
and that's the cool part about what you guys are doing. Hey, this has been epic. We've been going nearly for an hour. Um, let's go to this wealth building side. Okay,
Sure.
we've got out of debt. Okay, we've got out of credit card debt. We've snowballed it. We've got all our buckets set up, and we're actually now going to be mortgage free. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. What do I do to build wealth? Okay, give me maybe 5 things that I can do to really build my wealth. Because I think one of the things that's really scary for a lot of people is this thing called retirement, and what they're going to do in retirement. And the conversation is loud, online. It's loud in the media, and it's loud when it comes to politics as well. The
Yeah.
people that are running the country, etc., and how people are going to retire. And you know, I think it's a topic that a lot of people, because it's so loud, they push it under the covers, and they don't want to talk about it. So let's talk about it. How do we build wealth?
Yeah, so I think that the starting point and probably the easiest thing to start with if you're dealing with, look, this seems so big, how am I going to do this? Is to start with your mindset around building wealth, right? So we talked about dealing with your money personality, but also some of the good thing is when you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur, many of the ways that you think around your business and growing your business and all of these kinds of things, leverage and quick implementation and all these things, that's exactly what you can apply to building wealth. Okay.
Yeah, nice.
And so we call it a generational wealth mindset. You can call it anything you want, millionaire mindset. People, coin it different things, but it's basically, in the way that I look at it, is I tell our clients, everybody should be entrepreneurial. You don't have to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah, yeah, true.
just be entrepreneurial. Okay. Have that mindset and understand how am I leveraging, how am I growing my position, how am I taking new information and implementing it quickly and not getting stuck in the, paralysis by analysis and all these kinds of things that we know as business owners that we need to do. And so when you start applying that to your money and building wealth, then you're looking for income producing assets, right? Like, what do I have that I can leverage? Which is why in our Freedom Blueprint, we actually take people down the route of property investment. And that's because it's the easiest way for us to help them leverage, because they're paying off their mortgage and they have then equity, right? And they can leverage that equity, and the bank will give them 100% of the cost of that property. And so once you have the ability that you're saying, okay, well, I'm creating an asset that I have to use, which is equity, and can invest in property, then you start thinking, okay, well, I need to implement this quickly because I need to grow my wealth over time. And, you can really see how it just builds upon, and you already know how to, purchase property because you have one.
Yeah, yeah.
You already know how to pay down a mortgage because you've just done it with yours,
Yeah, so true.
those types of things. So we teach people just to build on what they've already developed, right? And
Nice.
so that's why we take them down the road of property investing, and particularly rental properties, because now you have the tenant helping you to pay down that mortgage. Before, you had to pay down
Yeah,
your
yeah.
own mortgage all by yourself. Seems
Yeah.
unfair when then you get a property that the
What sort of
tenant now
what
helps
sort
you
of
to.
properties do you look at? What sort of new builds? Are you looking at existing? How do you get
Yeah.
involved?
So we usually take people down the new build road, mostly because many of our clients, they have their day job, right? Like
Yeah.
our listeners, you have your business or
Mm,
businesses sometimes, right? You don't want to create another job, right?
yeah.
So if you get a new build property, one, it leaves the other existing properties for our first home buyers, which we believe is really important because we want to push creating more homes in New Zealand.
Mm,
And so in that new build, it's the tenants want to live in it.
yeah.
It has way less maintenance. You're still getting the tax incentives, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Deductibility. All these things are just kind of work well with new build properties. Now, it's not saying that you can't do it with an existing property. You might be actually positively geared and positive cash flow with an existing earlier, depending, right? But it also might be sucking up some of that cash because you have to fix it up,
Yeah.
so you don't really know. But that's why we do new builds. And if we can we help people specifically. We look for helping them look for opportunities for dual income, so like duplexes, for example.
Nice.
So then they're basically getting two for one. And so, and you can get two tenants, and later on you can split that title later until you really are getting two for
Yeah.
one. Um,
Nice.
and then you just buy and hold, right?
Yeah.
You're just sitting on it.
Yeah.
And again, you're loving your life. You have enough money set aside. You have money set aside to top up on that, because you're using your seed capital to top up the investment property as well. And so you really now it's sustainable for you to buy and
Mm.
hold that property,
Yeah.
right?
How many properties do you think people need to retire or should have in their, in their portfolio for retirement?
Yeah, it's so interesting. We when we do the numbers and we use like the law of 25, and we're even, adding inflation and different things and looking ahead, it's usually like 1 to 3 properties.
Yeah.
It's not a ton. You hear about people like, oh,
Yeah.
930, whatever properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need a ton, depending on what kind of lifestyle you're wanting to live, particularly also if you have a business, you're going to sell, and you have other assets.
Yeah.
If you are going to, depending on how you want to get the income out later, if you want to diversify with mutual funds, and there's some different things to look at. But yeah, it's typically 1 to 3 properties.
I think that's a good conversation that people should have with you, like, and it is dependent on what sort of lifestyle they want to live with. But the cool thing is if you got a mortgage-free house, you don't actually have to have 30 properties to retire, like, and I
Absolutely.
think that's the thing that puts a lot of people off. They think it's too far away from them, so they don't do anything. And then if they just actually had a conversation with someone who knows, and what they're doing, etc. Actually, it could be just 3 properties, and you could actually be living and looking at a pretty good lifestyle and a pretty good retirement versus doing nothing. And I
Yeah.
think it's a conversation that I think more people should be having. And sadly, I don't think the media really want to have that conversation with it, because it's probably too much of a good news story, right?
And that's right. It's too hopeful. It's too
Yeah,
hopeful.
yeah. You talked about the law of 25. What's the law of 25 there?
The law of 25 is you take basically how much do you want to get paid from your investment each year.
Mhm.
So for many
Okay.
people can live a really good lifestyle because like you said, very, very little accommodation costs if you don't have
Mm.
to pay a mortgage and all those kinds of things. And you can maybe live on 50,000 to 100,000 easily a year,
Nice.
depending on where in the country and all these kinds of things. But so you take that number, if it's let's say 50,000, and you multiply that by 25, that's how much that you need to be invested to give you $50,000 a year for 25 years,
Nice.
right? So it gives you a way to kind of plan out, okay, how much. So, and we actually help people to look at, okay, so what kind of lifestyle you don't know if you're like, I don't know, 15, 20, whatever years
Mm.
out, you can't go, well, I'm going to do this, but you can kind of get to an idea of what type of life, like my family's in Phoenix, Arizona. I would love to be able to go to Arizona whenever I wanted and a couple times a year and live there for a few months, or so some
Mm.
things you kind of know,
Oh,
like, all right, I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling,
yeah.
those types of things. And putting it in a kind of a what I call a realistic hypothetical, where you plan a little bit and then you kind of
Yeah,
give it a hypothetical,
totally.
and then you decide how much I might be going towards. Now you do this periodically. You don't just do it once and then start building wealth, right? You do it over time as well, kind of revisit it
Mm.
every few years, so then you can kind of see, am I still on track to what I think I want to do? And your hopes and dreams kind of change and become more clear as you get older. Um, but that way you have an idea of what type of life you're building toward,
Mm.
and then how much do you need invested to give you that lifestyle.
So good, so good. Such an interesting topic. I could talk for ages on this. Like I
Me
really,
too.
we probably only just touched the surface, but I know you're a busy person. Where does someone go to get hold of you, and how does someone reach out, and what does the process look like? And I guess that's people will be listening to this going, oh, I think we should do something, but I'm a wee bit nervous. What is the process, and how do you guys work with people?
Yeah, so you definitely can come to our website, futurebound.co.nz, and book a breakthrough call. But if you're kind of like, oh, I'd love to hear a little bit more, we do have a webinar coming up. It's actually next week, Thursday, and actually we'll be doing it each week for people who
Nice.
kind of go, look, I want to, I've listened to this, but I want to know a little bit more specifically around, how did you put this together, and how is this different than other things that we've heard before. And so I would encourage anyone to come, visit us on our website. You can book a 30-minute breakthrough call and we can sit down. If you're like, I'm ready to go, Jackie, you have like
Yeah.
sold me. I need to talk to you. Then, I'm happy to have that 30-minute breakthrough call. It's free, just so we can, get to know what is your destination, and if we're the right people to help you. But if you're kind of thinking, actually, I want more information, then you can jump into our webinar, which you
Nice.
can get to from our website as well. So
Terrific.
you can be able to just get some information, have your partner there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that you guys can learn and dream together.
That's so awesome. Hey, look, we'll put all the details in the show notes, and I really like your website has a lot of value in advance, and that's what I love about go and take advantage of that. Go to the website. Turn up to a webinar. You say you're going to have your webinars every week. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, on a Thursday
That,
evening.
that's awesome. Like go and educate yourself. Take some time. But if you are ready to go, contact Jackie and her team. Get involved because guarantee that you'll thank yourself, your future self later, because you've taken some action. And if you realize, this has been wearing on me for some time now. This could be the conversation, and you are just sometimes one conversation away from changing the destiny of what you're been doing. And look, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. The banks and those guys have been at us for years and years and years and conditioning us to stay into debt and stay and like actually sometimes you just need some help. And I think it's been a great conversation today, Jackie. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Is there anything else you just want to say before we go?
I just want, you said it best. I think you said it really well. Thank you for having me. And our mission is to put $1 billion of mortgage interest back into Kiwi households. And I really would love to do the same for you if you're listening. And so, really, most people kind of count themselves out because of all of the excuses. The number one
Mm,
problem that anyone has when they're looking to get to mortgage and financial freedom, it's their minds, their thoughts, their false beliefs. And so, just show up for yourself, right? Is
yeah,
what I say. Show up
I
for
agree.
yourself and your family.
Yeah.
Follow the system that we have and create your freedom.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, well, thank you for watching. If you're listening to this podcast or you're watching, here's your job now. Okay. Why don't you go and help Jackie on her $1 billion mission? Why don't you book a call and see what you can do and how much you can save on your mortgage? And while you're watching this, why don't you send it to a friend? Send it to a friend that you guys have been sort of talking about money and want to know, or send it to your partner and share it because, as my grandmother always said, a problem shared is a problem halved. Then, look, money doesn't have to be a problem anymore, and not for you. So go ahead and share this podcast, and that will make my day, and I know it'll make Jackie's day. So go ahead and do that. So, hey, thanks for listening to the Marketing for Business podcast. Go out there, have some fun, take action, and as always, celebrate your victories.